Have you found yourself in a situation as a leader where you are trying to set boundaries with other people, with tasks, with projects, your time, and etc., but for some reason it's not working? In this video, I want to talk to you about why these boundaries may not be working and share with you that you may be missing out on one of the most important boundaries that a lot of times people don't talk about. And that boundary is within yourself. Now, this video, we're going to talk about that. And I know that many of you as leaders are facing different types of challenges and situations in your lives, regardless of if you are in my direct target audience that I provide executive coaching and consultation services to, which are women in leadership, or you may be outside of that audience. You may be a man in leadership, or you may be someone that is not a leader just yet, but you're thinking about it. This is something that comes up often: boundaries. But sometimes we miss out on the boundaries within ourselves. And I'm going to share with you some strategies that I have personally used over the past 20 years to help me set boundaries within my mind, to help me be able to overcome some of those challenges that come up, especially as it relates to being a leader and communicating like a leader and etc. Now, if you are new to me, welcome, welcome. And if you are one of my amazing subscribers, welcome back, friend. I'm so glad that you're here today. And if this video specifically is one of your first videos you have seen on my channel, you definitely want to take a few moments to look at a few other videos. This video is a bit different than my normal videos. However, we are going to be focusing heavily on this channel on advanced communication strategies so that you can speak confidently and concisely under pressure as a leader. A couple videos before we go into the boundary you need to set within yourself that you may want to take a look at to establish a pretty good foundation in terms of being able to communicate in those very high stakes, high pressure situations, or any video on my live tab that talks about thinking on your feet, controlling your emotions under pressure, managing difficult conversations, your tone of voice, your body language, your eye contact, and etc. Take a few moments to look at any of those videos on my live tab, and that will give you a good place to get started to help you start developing those skills you need to communicate very confidently under pressure. Now, when it comes to this video, this is a live video. Therefore, there's a point in time where the audience will start to join. Therefore, give me just a few moments so I can say hello to everyone, and then we'll get right into a couple of insights and strategies that I want to share with you all today that will help you just to start setting boundaries within your mind. Now, you may be wondering, well, why is this important? Why is this something that I need to focus on, specifically as it relates to setting boundaries? One of the things I found, and I've talked about this at length on my channel, for the entire month of December 2025, we talked about setting boundaries. But before I go into why it's so important for you to start setting boundaries in here, let me say hello to our audience here. We have MC Lifton 1273. Hello, welcome, welcome. We have Football Rayan 1. Hello, hello. We have Kid Gadget. Hello, welcome, welcome. Hope y'all are doing well today. If you are struggling with setting boundaries, I'm going to share with you a secret today. You may be struggling with setting boundaries because you have not set the most important boundary, which is how you are thinking about different situations. If you want some support on that today and you have some struggles or some challenges you're dealing with as a leader, put it in the comments below. Let's talk about it. I'm here to support you any way that I can. This is Friday night, and as many of you know on my channel, Friday night I have a little bit more time to spend with you all to really help you any way that I can. I want you to be successful, and I don't want you to feel like you're going through these challenges completely by yourself. So ask me any questions as it relates to setting those boundaries. What are some challenges you're thinking about mindset wise? And let's go through them today. And let me know what part of the big, beautiful world you all are joining from today, friends. Let me know. We have Nart Avidu. Hello, welcome, welcome. Hope you're doing well. Now, as I was mentioning before the audience joined, boundaries within your external settings. Maybe you're working on the 5 boundaries that I talked about in length in December of 2025. Those boundaries, as a refresher for everyone that is joined or that may be new to the channel, There's 5 boundaries that I focused on. And the boundaries I focused on that you might want to consider if you are struggling or if you're at a point in your career, thank you for the 100 friends, that you are not where you want to be as a leader, are the following: the time boundary, the money boundary, the energy boundary, the personal boundary, and the professional boundary. So take a moment when you're thinking about your life, and I'm sharing with you from an executive coaching standpoint, and I appreciate the heart emojis and the celebration hats. Thank you, friends. But from an executive standpoint, think about those boundaries in your life and think about what is it that you need to do, or what is it that you are not able to do because you're not able to control those boundaries. But I want to talk to you a little bit more about why setting boundaries within yourself is so incredibly important. Now, many years ago, for me personally, when I decided to start my own business, there were a lot of boundaries that I did not know that I had, but I needed to get over them. One of the boundaries that I struggled with initially, and welcome those of you who are joining today. Let me know where you're joining from in the big, beautiful world today. And if you're struggling with one aspect of your career, I'm going to help you learn how to manage it by gaining more insight on how you can control your own boundaries within yourself. Now, as I mentioned, many years ago, I struggled with setting things up when I was getting things going with my business. I wasn't sure what my boundaries should be. So, for instance, me personally, I'm a very private person for the most part. And I found that as I grew my business and my YouTube channel and etc., I had to be a bit more transparent and more vulnerable with aspects of my life I normally would not share as a professional, as you are elevating and you are establishing your own audience. Now, that is a boundary that I personally had to set within myself. Now, there's other boundaries that I personally have set, and that's something that I did within myself. There's another one that I do constantly every single day. And let me know if y'all have questions in the comments below. If there's something that you are personally struggling with right now as it relates to advancement in your career or situations that are going on, this is your place to ask. I know it's hard. I personally did not have a mentor or someone to help me to really understand these very complex situations that comes up as a leader sometimes. And I know how scary it can be, especially when you feel like you don't know and you don't have anyone to speak to. I'm here for you. I'm here to support you any way that I can. Feel free to ask me anything. I'll help you as best I can. But as I mentioned, one of the boundaries that I want to share with you in terms of why you have to create boundaries within yourself includes the following. How many of you have ever been in a situation where you have immediately thought the most horrible, worst outcome a situation could ever have? I have. Let me know in the comments below, have you done this also? Sometimes as leaders, when we're in those very complex, high stakes, high pressure situations, we sometimes divert to the worst case scenario. And a lot of times we are trained that way as leaders, right? Sometimes we have to plan for worst case so that we hopefully will get the best case scenario. But one of the things that I struggled with as a leader when those situations would come up is that I would find myself going directly to the worst case scenario in here. And I found that when I thought about the worst case scenario, then it would subconsciously be in my mind, and I would start planning for the worst case scenario, basically creating this worst case scenario to happen because I already thought about it in my head. Now, one of the things that I do personally when I'm dealing with challenging situations and hard tasks, for instance, this past year, 2025 was one of the hardest years of my entire life. But one of the things that I do personally, and this is something I'm sharing with you all that I personally do, is whenever I have those very hard and complex situations that come up, and it's a lot, and maybe I have a lot that's coming down on me all at once. I have this, I have that, I have a million things. I've purposely forced myself to establish a boundary in here. And what I do specifically is whenever I have those situations come up, if I find that my mind is starting to think a bit negative, or, oh, I don't know if this is going to work out, or this is not going to work out, this is the worst case scenario, I literally, leaders, have to stop myself mid-thought and say out loud, I'm not going there in my mind today. That is personally what I do. Because I have found, as I mentioned earlier, when you go there, so to speak, in your mind in a more negative way, it creates this cascade of processes that happen in your mind, in your body, that you are processing and thinking about that are pretty much putting you on that worst case scenario path. This is something that helps me. And I hope that it gives you some insight to think about as well. So I want to know from those of you watching, have you ever been in a challenging situation where you had to reshift and change your mindset on it? Let me know in the comments below. Earlier this week, I did a live with Sadie Lavish of the Savoir Vivre Society on Instagram, and we talked about mindset and women in leadership and why this is sometimes a struggle for people when they're just trying to start out in their careers, or maybe they're in a 9-to-5 and they're terrified of leaving their 9-to-5 because they're just concerned that they're going to lose out on income or etc. And so one of the things that we talked about was how you really do have to change your mindset, how you think about things. And what I do personally may work for you, it may not work for you. Everyone has their own way of dealing and coping with situations that are going on in their mind. But what I encourage you to do, even if what I do personally does not work for you, is when you have those situations come up where it is bad, it is rough, it is tough, it is literally all of the above, then remind yourself, don't go there. Don't let your mind go there, because once your mind goes there, it's gone. It is gone. It is gone. It is going there. It's in the negative place. It's hard to get it back, and you have to fight hard to bring yourself back. That is my encouragement to you, because we always work together to set boundaries. And I talk about boundaries, and yes, I believe there are several boundaries that everybody has to work on to help them advance in their careers. But as I mentioned at the very beginning of this live, for those of you who may have missed it, sometimes the most important boundary that you need to work on is yourself and what you are thinking in your mind. Because a lot of times, if you are thinking in a more negative way, you sometimes are creating that negative scenario. Now, do challenging things happen to people? Yes, they do. And sometimes they don't mean for those things to happen. They just happen to occur. But in any situation that you have going on, you want to try to keep yourself as positive as you can. I'm not saying get some rainbow colored glasses and wear them and walk around and say, oh, everything is great. No, there's challenges out there. We all know it. But you want to try to maintain and be as positive as you can. I want to say hello to Melissa McLaughlin 6797. Hello, Melissa. Welcome. How are you doing today? Melissa says, yes, queen. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And I appreciate you stopping by today. So maintaining positivity at all times is very important. Are there going to be tough situations? Yes. But the next time, remember this. Hopefully this helps you. And if you have a friend, a loved one, a colleague, whether they are in my direct target audience, I provide executive coaching services or consultation services to, that are women in leadership, contact me for a strategy session in the description below. Let's talk about where you are and where you're going. Whether you are outside of my audience, you know somebody that's outside of my audience or in my audience, share this with them, because many times it's what is happening in here is what will hold you back. And this is the boundary that a lot of times people don't talk about. Every other boundary that you're trying to set outside of work, you're trying to control your schedule, you're trying to manage your time, you're trying to make sure people are not being disrespectful and rude and all of these things. You have to do those boundaries, but it has to start with you first. What are you thinking about really does dictate where your mind goes. And I do this every day. I have challenging situations that come up just like everybody else. We all deal with things. And when I have those negative situations, I literally will stop myself and say, I'm not going there today. I'm not going there today. So I want to say hello to Jaden O'Connor. Hello, welcome, welcome. How are you doing today? Let me know what part of the big, beautiful world you all are joining from today, friends. And if you like this information so far and it's giving you some insights, some things to think about and consider so that you can start setting boundaries within your mind so that you're able to set boundaries with everybody else, then feel free to like and subscribe to the channel. This is what we talk about. This is a bit of a different video because I focus heavily on advanced communication skills and strategies to help you communicate more confidently and concisely under pressure. But today we're doing a little bit different of a video to help support you to set some of those boundaries that you need. So Jaden says, and I hope I said your name correctly, it's Jaden or Jadian. Let me know in the comments below. Jadian O'Connor says, what are we talking about? We are talking about how you can set boundaries within your mind. Because a lot of times what happens, Jadian, I hope I'm saying it correctly, friend. What happens a lot of times is that there's different types of boundaries that we are trying to set externally. We don't want anyone to speak to us in a certain type of a manner or tone of voice. We don't want to be taken advantage of in our businesses or as employees. We don't want to do this. We don't want to be communicating a certain way. So we set those boundaries up. But sometimes what I have found, and I've experienced this myself, JDM, is that we do not have the time, or we're not setting time for us to actually set boundaries within our mind. And as I was mentioned before you joined, oftentimes what's helped me is whenever I have those not as positive thoughts, or maybe those very challenging or negative situations that happen to be occurring to me, I have to forcibly tell myself to not go there in my mind. Because, Jaden, what I found that happens oftentimes is that when this occurs, this is something that actually will cause you to go into a different direction in terms of your mind, in terms of how you are thinking and where you are going. And it can make things very, 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 very challenging for you as you are trying to navigate different aspects of your career. So that is what we are talking about specifically here in this video. If you all have any questions specifically as it relates to how you are struggling with different types of things and etc., then let me know in the comments below. Hold on just a minute, because my kids are like banging down on my door and I don't know why. So give me just a second. I'll be right back. Sorry about that. If any of y'all have kids and it's today, tomorrow is Valentine's Day. So my kids have candy and they're fighting over their candy. So this is just the life of a parent. This is what happens a lot of times, is when there's kids and candy, especially on Valentine's Day. So I appreciate your patience on that. So let me know what questions you all have specifically as it relates to setting boundaries. Maybe you're in a situation where it's a bit more challenging for you and you're trying to figure out, well, how do I say this? When do I say this? Where do I say this? I will help you with that. Just let me know what situations you're personally dealing with right now, and let's talk about it. I'm here to support you in any way that I can. But remember, you always have to be at a place where you know the boundaries have to start in your mind. You have to set them up in your mind first so that you are in a good place where you can be able to manage those challenging situations when they come up. So I want to say hello to those of you who are joining today. Let me know what part of the big, beautiful world you all are joining from and what questions you have about setting boundaries. I know this is a challenge for many people, and I want to make sure that you all are in a very good place so that the next time you feel like you're struggling with boundaries, this is something that you absolutely will be able to navigate very, 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 very easily as you're going through your journey. Now, I will share with you a couple scenarios where I had to set boundaries myself internally within my head first. And one of those, I've talked about this on my channel many, many times, and it specifically focuses on when I started my business. Now, many of you may know when I started my business, I did not start my business as a full-time entrepreneur. I did not do that. I started my business while I was working a 9-to-5 job. And it was very, very challenging. It was very, very difficult to do. But I had to set some internal boundaries within my mind in terms of what are the projects that I'm going to be able to work on? What are the projects that I'm not going to be able to work on? And etc. Because I had to actually reverse engineer my schedule to be able to spend time with you all and get a couple things set up for me in terms of my schedule so that I could be able to start working and managing my business. So one of the things I had to do was I had to determine, in order for me to be able to work on my business for X amount of hours a day, I had to go to bed at this time. And in order for me to go to bed at this time, I have to leave work at this time. And what happened to me is that it took me a while, but I mentally in my mind had to program myself to say, if something comes up after hours, if there's an event, if there's some task, if there's something I have to deal with in my role at that time that's after hours, it is going to have to wait until the next day. It has to wait until the next day. There's no way I'm going to be able to do that today because I knew that I had to go to bed at a certain time to get up at a certain time to work. Now, this is years ago. This is many years ago. My schedule at that time in my life was that I had to get up at 2:30 in the morning. And thank you for I believe it was 100. Thank you so much for that. I had to get up at 2:30 in the morning or at 3 o'clock in the morning just for me to be able to work for a few hours before I had to get my kids ready for us to go to school, for me to go to work, and etc. So in order for me to get up at that time of the morning, I had to go to bed at a certain time in the evening. There was no way for me to be able to work on my business if I'm not able to get any sleep. And that is the reason why I had to mentally in my mind determine that if there's something that comes up after hours, I have to deal with it tomorrow. Now, many of you are very high achievers, especially being subscribed to my channel, because the type of videos I have on my channel are geared to a certain type of very ambitious and high achieving person, which I know is you. But many times we're just in like go mode all the time. We have to work. If something comes up, we deal with it, we handle it, we figure it out, and we take care of it. But I had to set my boundaries to remind myself that yes, I do want to be in go mode and get things taken care of, but I have something else that I'm building on the side at that time. And I had to give myself permission in my mind to say, Jacinta, it's okay if you don't do this today. It's okay if I don't deal with this fire. As long as it's not something that's like catastrophic, it's okay if this gets dealt with tomorrow. And that's something that I had to work very hard to do, because when you're in those senior executive roles, you know this is something that you have to focus on all of the time. And it's so incredibly hard to do it when you're used to just running all the time. Thank you for the 100 emojis. You're just used to going all the time. And I had to really stop and say, I don't have to do this now, because I need to stop at a certain time so that I can go home, I can take care of my kids, I can go to bed, and I can get up at 2:30 in the morning. Now, do I get up at 2:30 in the morning now? No, I have a different type of life now, and I have more kids. But before, at that time, yes, I was getting up that early for that reason. So I want to say hello to Coach Axe. Welcome, Coach Axe. How are you doing today? Good to see you, friend. And Coach Axe, I believe you are new here, or maybe I have not seen your name on the screen before, but Coach Axe says framing perspective is key. Yes, that is very important. In your mind, you have to determine what is it that you want to do and what boundaries do you have to make within yourself in order to accomplish whatever it is that you're trying to do. For instance, as I mentioned, for me, I had to set boundaries within myself to say, I don't have to be in go mode. I have to pace things out because I have something else I'm working on. Whenever there was events at my particular role I was at that time, where it was after hours, on the weekends, extra time, I had to excuse myself from those events. Now, I will tell you, I did get pushback because I was a senior executive at that time, and people would say, well, why are you not coming to these events? You're supposed to be here. It's one of those situations where it's other duties as assigned, right? Where people want you to come to different types of functions and etc. But I had something else that I was building, and I knew that I was going to function and do my role 100%, but 100% does not require me just to waste my time anymore. And I had to really program that boundary in my mind, because as a C-suite executive at that time, I felt like I had to be everywhere all the time. Thank you for the heart emojis. I had to be everywhere all the time. And then I realized that, you know what? What happens when I go to these extracurricular events? Nothing. Nothing. I'm not getting additional income for that. I'm not making additional networking opportunities that are benefiting me directly. It's not helping me. It's just to show face that I was actually there. And I just got to the point where I said, I don't want to do it anymore. I'm not going to be able to do that if I'm trying to build a business at the same time. These are conversations I had with myself when I was going through that phase where I was working full time and starting my business also. I know many of you on the channel have talked about this. And let me know in the comments below, what are you struggling with right now? What are some challenges that you're facing? What are some boundaries that you feel like you're not being able to set? And let's talk about a strategy to help you overcome that today so that you are in a better place as you are moving into next week. We're in February. We're about to go into March of 2026, and we're going into the first quarter in terms of the last part of the first quarter. So if there's something that you are struggling with and you need some support with, then you absolutely are welcome to get any insights. And thank you for the heart emojis. I'm here to share with you over 20 years worth of experience that I have had as an executive, as a public speaker, as executive coach, to help you any way that I can on your journey. I know it's hard. I know it's tough. Whether you're a woman in leadership and you're my direct target audience, I provide executive coaching and consultation services to, or you're a man in leadership, or you're somebody that's not a leader yet, I know it's hard. And as I mentioned earlier, I didn't have a lot of guidance and mentorship when I was developing as a professional woman. So I know having somebody to talk to is important. Your situation is not too complicated, especially if it's on a professional level. That's my main focus. If it's a lot of other things going on, that's kind of out of what I work with, but just know that people come to me for the hard things, the hard conversations, the really complex situations where you're not quite sure what to do. I'm here to support you any way that I can. But as I mentioned, you have to have these conversations with yourself. And framing, as Coach Axe said, is really key. You have to put yourself in a situation where you understand what's the main goal, and how much are you willing to guard your goal or guard the actions you take to accomplish that goal so that you can actually reach it. And sometimes people are just simply not willing to do it. They'll say, oh gosh, no, oh no, I gotta go to work. I can't do this. If I don't go, they're gonna be mad at me and they're gonna be upset and I'm gonna lose my job. How long do you want to keep living life that way? That doesn't necessarily mean you're going to lose your job, but it means that you have to set boundaries and have that internal dialogue within yourself in terms of what's really important to you to do at this point and what you want to try to focus in on. Now, I'll tell you something that happened to me on my YouTube channel when I did a video like this before, but first let me see what's in the chat. IXO Multic, welcome back, friend. High five, friend. How you doing? I haven't seen you in a long time. Good to see you again. IXO Multic says, like 6, you look beautiful with your hair down. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. How are you doing today? Good to see you, friend. I was actually going through my analytics on my channel, and I'm going to be featuring a couple of you. And IXO Multic, you're on that list because you're involved. You're in my community spotlight of people that engage most on my channel. So I'm going to be doing some posts for you all here very soon. I actually took some screenshots yesterday to get ready for that. But it's good to see you, friend. And thank you for the wave. I appreciate that. Let me know what are some challenges you all are facing right now as it relates to setting boundaries, complex situations. What's going on for you right now? Let's talk about it. Let's get some strategies ready for you going into last week of February. Now, many years ago, when I first started my YouTube channel, I had a video that talked about how to say no at work. Now, a lot of people said, how to say no at work? Why would you ever say no at work? Why would you ever say no? The reason I made that video and why it ties into boundaries and things you have to think about is from my own personal experience, because sometimes you have to say no at work. It depends on your situation and what's going on. You can't say no all the time because then that may be a problem. But there are times where you can strategically decline different situations depending on what's going on with you personally. Now, I actually had someone comment on that video, and that's a much older video on my channel. I had someone comment, and I don't know if the comment's still there or not, But they said it was basically not right for me to tell people to say no at work. I think they mentioned that there was some type of implications. You can't do that. And what people don't understand is that many times, many of us that are working in different roles and positions, especially when you're at that senior level leadership, you feel like your companies pretty much are dictating every aspect of not only your working life, but your personal life. And that's where you have to say no. That's where there has to be some form of a balance. As I mentioned, I was asked a lot of times to come to different events outside of office hours that were in the evenings and do this and do that. And I got to the point where I said, I'm not going to do it. Like, I cannot continue to do this anymore. I have kids, I have this, and I have other things to take care of. And so I would talk to some of my team to see if they wanted to go. And if they couldn't go, then they couldn't go. That's just something that would happen. And saying no at work is not bad. You just have to be very strategic about it so that you're still able to do what you need to do in your role, but then also be able to set those boundaries that are healthy for you, because many people struggle with setting boundaries. And as I mentioned, for those of you who are just joined, the boundaries that we talked about previously that you absolutely want to set or work on setting this year are your time boundary, your money boundary, your energy boundary, your personal boundary, and your professional boundary. I'd focus on those. However, today we're talking about the most important boundary you have to set within your mind, which is setting your own boundaries. Because if you don't have them programmed here, it makes it very difficult for you to move forward and to really enforce your boundaries when they come up. And so I shared with you a couple scenarios that's happened to me. When I had to set my own internal boundary, when I started my YouTube channel, I had to understand that in order for me to build a relationship with my audience, I have to be a bit more transparent in terms of what I tell them, which by nature, I'm a very private person, very private. And that's just because of the roles I've been in. I've been that senior executive leader that is making the decisions, that's having to do different types of situations that happen, layoff, terminations, big projects, and etc. So I keep my personal business, my business, but on my YouTube channel and some of the other platforms, but mostly on YouTube, I have to let you all know a bit more about me because I want to build a relationship with you all because you're spending time talking to me. So you have to at least get to know who you're talking to, right? That is a boundary that I had to change with me personally because I've always been very trained to just keep everything just where it is. But this is what happens a lot of times when you are elevating in your roles or you're transitioning to different aspects of your careers, etc. You understand that there's some boundaries that you have to really work on internally within yourself. That was one of my boundaries. And then, of course, I've shared with you about what happened to me when I was working full-time job and starting my business and working as an executive coach, or learning it. At that time, I was actually doing my executive coach training. And then I also completed my Distinguished Toastmaster with Toastmasters International at that same time. So I just simply didn't have time to go to these extracurricular events at the role I was in. I didn't have time to do it. And I had to set those boundaries because it was much more important for me at that time to be working on my business, writing speeches for Toastmasters to become a better speaker, and then working on my coaching homework assignments that I had at that time before I was receiving my certification to help me develop into who I am today. And I'm so glad that I did, because if I would not have done that, and if I would have lived a very timid life and been so terrified and scared in terms of, oh no, if I don't go, then they're going to be mad at me or they're going to think differently of me, I would have probably been in the same situation I was in years ago. And I may not be in a place where I'm actually even speaking to you now, because I would have been trapped into the 9-to-5 box where I wouldn't have been able to get out. I hope that gives you some insight and a couple things to think about as you are navigating and moving forward to setting your own boundaries. And remember, do not forget the boundaries within your mind. You have to set those up. And when those negative thoughts come up, as I talked about earlier, force yourself to think positively. Think about it differently. Like, as I said, it may work for you, it may not, but what I do when I have negative thoughts come up or negative situations happen or things just happen, I tell myself, I'm not going there today. And I don't, and I'm not going there today. And I fight hard to make sure my mind doesn't go there, because when my mind goes there to the negative place, oh, it's gone. It is gone. And so I don't want y'all to make that mistake. Axel Multic says, we often say no at work. Not saying so can lead to us being exploited at the workplace. Yes, I'm going to give you a high five on that, friend, because that is so true. And that is one of the reasons why I made that video a long time ago, because people kind of, there's this really very odd dynamic. And I think it's even more so now. Like, for instance, here, IXO Multic, in the US, we had 108,000 layoffs in January of 2026. That's the most layoffs we've had since 2009. So that's a lot. That's a lot of people that do not have jobs right now. However, you make such a really good point, because there is this thought process that sometimes happens when people go to different jobs, and they think that they have to just do everything they say. And that exploitation at the workplace that you mentioned definitely happens. And I've been on the back end of it, and I've seen other leaders do it. So I'm telling you that people do this. Not all, but people will do this. And so you have to say no. You have to advocate for yourself. If you don't, you will feel like you're being exploited at work. How many of you have ever felt that way? If you're watching live or watching in the comments below, how many of you have ever felt like you've been exploited at work? I have, and I know many of you have too. So this is something that you do not want to do. And I think a much deeper aspect of that, IXO Multic, is the following. When you're in those situations where you feel like you're being exploited at work, there's a certain amount of control of your life that you feel like you do not have. And I have seen where that lack of control in our lives can be very catastrophic and detrimental to our mental health. And this is the reason why people become so frustrated in their roles. This is the reason why people do not want to work in certain industries anymore, or they completely just quit. This is the reason why people become burnt out, because they feel like they do not have control over their lives. And I want to be a support to you all and know that, do you have to sit there and tell your boss, no, I'm not doing that, goodbye? No, you don't have to do that. Not yet. Depending on where you are in your journey, you don't have to just do that. But there are strategic ways where you can be able to say no and still be in an okay position. There's some times where you may not necessarily be able to say no. There's sometimes you have every opportunity to say no. It's just a matter of which one is the most priority to you and what's most important. Because I don't want you to be exploited in the workplace. And that happens very, very often, a lot more than people will realize. Especially as a leader, or even not as a leader, it happens. So having the ability, having the confidence, having the tools that you need to strategize and think through this in terms of, well, how do I say I'm not able to attend? I will not be able to make it, in a very polite but straightforward way, can be intimidating. And I know that, and I see that, and this is one of the reasons why I'm here to support you all, regardless of where you are in the world, because I know this is hard. It doesn't matter what country you're from. We all deal with the same things. We have different challenges in different areas, but there's a lot that we have that we deal with in common. And that's something that a lot of people don't talk about. But ultimately, this is something that I want to equip you with those skills and those strategies. And that's why I'm so incredibly passionate about helping you to communicate confidently and concisely under pressure. Because these situations where you're telling somebody no at work, yes, that's a high stakes, high pressure situation. It is. So I want to make sure that you are in a good place to do that. IXO Multic says, and even more so in those companies that claim to be part of your family. Oh, friend, you know, I could talk about that a long time. And I appreciate the heart emojis, friends. Yes, you have to be careful. And this is Friday. So Friday, I get to go into a little bit more detail. But IXO Multic brings up something very, very, very important that is oftentimes not said, which is why he brings wonderful insights to the channel. And I appreciate him being here so much. Because, yes, there are companies out there that say you're like family, or you're in the family, friends, you need to watch out for them. I'm sorry. There's some companies that are good. Okay. There's some companies that legitimately are good. And I appreciate the heart emojis, friends. There's some companies that are legitimately good. Okay. They really are good companies out there. So let me preface it by saying that. However, there are companies out there that may not be as good either. And when those situations come up, you just have to be really careful, because there is this very odd dynamic that can come up sometimes when you are working for a company that wants to treat you like family. And think about it. We all have different situations. We have families. I appreciate the heart emojis and the smiley faces. We all have situations and families, and some of our family members we don't talk to, right? And so when you have situations at a job where you are going to collect a paycheck and they want to treat you like family, but then what happens? They treat you like family, okay? And then they expect you to do everything. And that's where the exploitation that IXO Multic mentioned ends up coming into place. And thank you for the heart emojis. This is why people get frustrated. And so I tell you, if you are starting out on your journey, or you've been very seasoned in your role, you're a senior executive, or you're working at a startup, or etc., be careful of those companies that say they want you to be like family, because sometimes that be like family is going to be like family, and they may not necessarily treat you the way you want to be treated, or they may try to make you do a lot more than what you need to do. Now, as I mentioned, not all companies are like that, okay? Not all companies are like that, but there's quite a few of those that I would be worried about. Every time I hear someone say, oh, they're supposed to treat me like family, I just always tell them, they can treat you like family, or they may think you're family, but I need you to be the family member that takes care of themselves and that is a bit mysterious to everybody else. Because that doesn't mean because someone treats you like family, that you need to tell them your personal business. And that sometimes is what I see happen often in those situations, is that the family feels like they need to know everything about you, your kids, your significant other, or whatever else you have going on in your life, and they really don't. IXO Multic says, I'm very lazy. My 8-hour workday isn't a minute more. There's nothing wrong with that. And I would actually, and I know people are going to say, oh, I can't believe you said that, but I'm going to say it. I would actually advocate for that, because there comes a point in time where you have to have some form of a balance, whether you are going to actually have a balance or you're going to have to create it yourself. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you're lazy at all. That means you're very smart, personally, because you have to be able to put yourself in a situation where when it's time to go, it's time to go. As long as you're doing 100%, doing as much as you can during your day, and you're getting the results that are needed to be accomplished or successful for your specific role, when it's 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 10 o'clock, whatever shift you're working right now, then it's time to go. That doesn't mean you have to stick around. It doesn't mean you have to talk around and go over different things unless you just need to vent and talk. But other than that, I would leave. And this is part of you saying no at work, that you've done your work, you've been there during the time frame that you need to be there, and now it's time for you to go take care of your family, go take care of yourself, or go take care of your loved one, or just do whatever you want to do after it is that time of the day. Thank you for the heart emojis. But this is something that people really don't talk about, because they will tell you, no, you need to do above and beyond, and you need to stay late hours. You can still do above and beyond within the hours that you have to work. You have to be a little bit more efficient with your time and how you manage your projects in order to do that. And if you're struggling with something like that, then contact me for a strategy session in the description below, so we can come up with a strategy so you're not feeling so stressed, and that you can have a life again, and that you can be able to do things after hours. All right, IXO Multic says, I remember to William Faulkner about a man who can do in 8 hours. Yes, so William Faulkner, for those of you who do not know, is who is the Captain Kirk on Star Trek, I believe. And so yeah, I'm sure he did a lot of amazing things, and I appreciate you so much for bringing that to the conversation today, because it's something that we have to think about. I mean, what can you reasonably do in your 8 hours? What can you do? How can you be more efficient with your time so that when that time comes, when it's time to go, then it's time to go. And you don't feel like you haven't been able to finish everything. Now, we'll say this. Take my mistake that I made and shared with you all earlier. When you're in those roles as a high achiever, I know you want to just do everything, finish it all immediately, get it done, and work until 9 o'clock at night when you were supposed to leave at 5. I know you want to do that. But remember, don't make the mistake that I made initially. Pace yourself. If it is something catastrophic, you have to deal with that. Sometimes you will have to be there after hours doing that. But if it's not catastrophic, I have qualifications of fire, okay? So I have my qualifications of fire so that you all know. It's either catastrophic, okay? Catastrophic fire, to me as a leader, means hands on deck, I got to take care of this. Thank you for the heart emojis, friends. I have to take care of this. Now, I can't leave. Or not leave. I may be able to leave, but I'm still going to be dealing with this when I go home, type of thing. Then there are your regular fires. Situations, and thank you for the heart emojis and the smiley faces. Then you have your situations that come up where they're fires. You need to put the fires out. Sometimes you may have to let the fire burn a little bit, but you don't necessarily have to stop everything and work until 5:30, 7 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, when you're supposed to leave at 5 o'clock to take care of it. Some of those fires, you have to put them off in the next day. For instance, here in the States, we have fires that happen. So for instance, there's fires that have happened in California. California is dealing with fires very, very often. Sometimes they can't tackle all the fires in that one day because they just can't. They don't have the resources to do it. They don't have the manpower to do it. They just don't have everything they need to do it. And they have to take care of them the next day. Think of it in that way. If the firefighters can't do everything in one day, sometimes you may not have the resources, the bandwidth. You may be tired. Well, you just can't deal with it either. You just can't deal with everything in one day. And I appreciate the 100s and the heart emojis, friends. Sometimes you just can't do it. You just can't do it. So I call those the fires. Okay, the fires, you kind of judge and determine. The fires are something that, okay, I may need to deal with this tomorrow, but I'm going to have to deal with it relatively quickly or it's going to go completely scorched earth here. And I don't want that either. My next category is smoke. A little bit of smoke here and there is something that it's smoke. It's something I'm going to deal with it, but do I have to deal with it today or tomorrow? Not really. And so I would use those decoding type of language with a lot of my clients and with my team when I was in those executive roles to determine how we're going to deal with this situation. Is it a catastrophic fire? Is it a fire? Or is it smoke? And if it's smoke, I'm not dealing with it right now. And I'm definitely not going to stay late to deal with smoke. But the problem is, and I want to say hello to Tony Invan 378. Hello. Welcome back, Tony. How you doing today? Good to see you. What a lot of times people do, and the mistakes that they make specifically, is that they have this perception as leaders that they have to deal with everything, whether it's the smoke, whether it's a fire, or whether it's catastrophic fire, all at once. And sometimes leaders do not understand that you have to have some type of priority ranking when it comes to problems and issues. Not all issues need to be dealt with at that time. Now, let me know in the comments below, have you ever been in a situation where you felt like you had all three, a smoke, a catastrophic fire, and a fire happening all at once? How did you manage those really challenging situations? Put it in the comments below. Let's talk about it. But you have to have some type of decision-making tree. The decision-making tree helps you to have some type of structure. It's really important for you to do. All right, so Tony Invan 378 said, looks great. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And Tony Invan 378 says, good. Okay, fantastic. Glad you're doing well today. So I shared with you a lot of great insights that will help you, especially to set those boundaries within your mind so that you're able to move forward. For those of you just joined, we've been talking for about 50 minutes now. So I will highlight them very quickly because I know many of you are subscribers, and so I always look out for you all, even though we've been talking for a long time. Couple things to keep in mind very, very quickly within, I would say, 1 minute. I'm going to do it. If you're at a point where you're struggling in your career and you're setting boundaries and they're not working, there's something in here that you need to set a boundary to. So I talk a lot more about that in the live video. And then the second thing is to make sure when you are having those very negative and challenging thoughts, make sure your mind doesn't go there. Think of something more positive, be more upbeat. I tell myself, I'm not going there today in my mind when something bad or negative happens. So just keep that in mind. And then we've talked a little bit about decision-making trees, how you deal with boundaries, how you deal with fires and challenges. So that is how I do it. But you definitely want to watch the video if you want to learn a little bit more in terms of why these boundaries are so important for you to set, the 5 boundaries you need to focus on specifically as a leader, and how you can start creating that life that you need to move forward if you start working on boundaries, especially within yourself. Izo Multic also mentioned how this is really important. I mean, this is something that you don't want to be exploited at work. Coach Axe mentioned that framing is really key. And so we've had a lot of great insights about that. But if you have any questions, let me know. Tony Invan378 says, did you get my mail? Are you referring to mail? Are you referring to probably not physical mail? I'm assuming you meant email, possibly. I have not checked my email today. I've been with clients all day, so I'm assuming it's probably not mail, more than likely, but maybe it's email, possibly. So let me know, what are some challenges that you all are dealing with right now? Email. Okay, Tony says email. Yes, I have not looked through my email yet, Tony. I haven't went through any of that. I've been with clients all day today working on some things, so I will usually check that a little bit later, either this evening or it'll be sometime in early tomorrow. It just depends. I have a meeting not too long after our live today. So let me know what questions you have. I do want to let you all know that I am actually building 2 books. One is a very short ebook, and so on my channel or on my community page, probably tomorrow, I'm going to place a poll. I've already placed it in LinkedIn, and it's going to be a couple of topics that I want to know if you want to be able to talk about it or learn more about it in an ebook, in a very short ebook. On LinkedIn, so far, the responses that I have received, the number one response that people want to learn more about is specifically how to have high stakes conversations. So since that's a front runner right now, that will definitely be a part of the ebook. But there may be other parts of it too, where we talk about executive presence and confidence when you're speaking and etc. So I'll put that poll on there. If you don't mind, just please vote on it, because I actually am developing an ebook just for you all. And I want to make sure that the ebook is something that is relevant to everyone in my audience. Even if you're outside of my direct target audience, I provide executive coaching and consultation services too, which are women in leadership. If you're a man in leadership or outside of that, you should have some pretty good value as it relates to this ebook. And I want to make sure it's encompassing quite a bit to help you all on your journey. So please vote. Let me know what you're thinking about. Let me know what topics are coming to mind that you want to learn more about. And I will do an ebook for you, a very short one that will be some really good quality information to help you on your journey. Tony Invan378 says, that's wonderful. Okay, enjoy your day. Well, thank you, Tony. I appreciate that. And glad to see you back on the channel again. The other book I'm going to be publishing later this year is going to be a bit differently. This book is actually going to be a formal book that I'm publishing this year. And I'm still working on specifically the exact title of it. I've been working on this book, or had it in my mind to do, several years ago. And I'm going to put it all together this year for sure. So this is more of a book for everyone to review and read and give you some insights to help you there on your journey. Now, I mentioned this earlier today, this morning, and I'll mention it again. I really want to support you all. And if you are dealing with anything professional related that is a challenging situation, a really complex scenario you're dealing with, I really do want to help you in all sincerity. I appreciate you all being here. I appreciate you being a part of my audience. And I'm here to help you any way that I can. I'm one of the few live streamers. There's a lot of people that live stream, but I've been on a lot of live streams that actually interact with their audiences and not just talk just to say they're talking, and not even say hello to their audience or say hello to certain people in the audience. I actually say hello to literally everyone, as long as they're not a troll, right? You all have seen some trolls on my channel, and I have to get rid of the trolls, hide them from the channel, and just tell them to go somewhere else. But I really want to help you. So if you are watching any of my videos, whether it's a short, whether it's a long form video, or whether it's a live video, any of them, and something comes up and you say, you know what, I really wanted to get some more insight on how to deal with this situation. Maybe it's an interview, maybe it's a salary negotiation, maybe you are a public official and you have to speak to your constituents and you're trying to figure out, how do I change my tone of voice? How do I do this? How do I do that? Maybe you are a business owner and you're trying to speak to more people and you just don't know how to sound really confident about your business. Maybe you are a leader and you're trying to communicate to a large group of people to get them to buy in or persuade them to go to your project or help you with your project or secure funding with it. There's so many scenarios that can come up when you're watching some of the videos. Therefore, if something comes up for you and that you feel like, if you have the at least little thought and you're thinking, I really want to learn a little bit more about that, just, get your phone, text, email, either way, or message, and let me know what it is you have a question about. I will respond to your comment as long as it's appropriate, and I will give you some insights and be able to help you on your journey. I'm here really to help you any way that I can, and I'm here to support you. So I appreciate you all so much for being just a part of my audience. I appreciate you. We're growing so quickly. We're getting very, very close to 1,000 subscribers, which is a tremendous milestone for me as a content creator here, especially here on YouTube. And I just appreciate every single one of you being a part of my journey and just making my life just amazing. Because anytime I'm able to interact with all of you here, to say hello and to support you and answer any questions or have some dialogue, I appreciate the heart emojis, friends. It truly just makes my day. I'm here to help y'all in any way that I can. And I want you all to be very successful. And I know communication is important, especially in the written format and in the verbal format. And if you have a hard time communicating confidently and concisely under pressure consistently, then this is the best place for you. So I appreciate you all being here. I hope you have an absolutely amazing weekend. Holiday weekend for us here is Valentine's Day going into that, and President's Day on Monday. But I appreciate you all. I will see you all next week. And if I can help you any way that I can, put it in the comments below. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.